Hi everyone, this is Sasha. We're here on the HODLCAST, and today's guest is Nick Baldwin. His Twitter handle at Nick in Color, and Nick is a mixed media artist. He's also an open source developer and the co-founder of Trustless Apparel. He made this beautiful T-shirt I'm wearing right now. How's it going, Nick?
It's going awesome. Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for
Um,
coming on. I guess
Made
like,
this shirt too out of Peak Turner. It didn't happen. Yeah.
oh yeah, nice. Yeah, your guys' shirts are awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, you know what? The Trellis Apparel story is kind of funny. I think it was December, and we're like, there's all these ICOs, all these scams. Like, how can we make a legitimate, like, what can we do that's a legitimate? We're both like good developers. Like, we could
We both
actually create a token.
tell people who the other person is.
Oh, Chappelle. I don't know if I mentioned. Yeah. Yeah. So Ariel and I sort of co-founded this together. And Ariel's a brilliant guy. He's a journalist in the space. He's a developer. He's all over the place. So his Twitter is at not a Sith Lord, I believe. So if but anyway, yeah. So we were talking. We're like, what can we like? We're both good developers. We could start a token. We could do some actual. Like, you know what? Let's just sell shirts. Like, that's honestly that's the most honest, legitimate thing we can do right now. Let's make an apparel brand that actually tells the truth of the space, because we've seen a bunch of shirts that were, a bunch of clothes just generic, like coin logo, Ethereum logo, just nonsense that has nothing to do with the culture or with the space. And there's no apparel brand that actually represents our people. So why not? So that's really where the idea was born. Um, and yeah, it's just been a really cool thing since then. The process has been like super challenging though.
Why?
You would like, yeah, like, why? Like, that's what we said. Like, the scaling problems with starting a small clothing brand are really challenging, actually. Like, so small print runs are more expensive than you want them to be. You'll have designs that do sell and some that don't. It's just those sort of hurdles, and then also like trying to introduce the idea of tokenizing limited run apparel and the sort of things that we're working with. There's some cool stuff coming up though, but it's been really tricky getting to this point where we're actually starting to go steady moving forward. But we're really in a place now where we brought like the production of the threads that we're making and everything more in house, so that really smoothed things out a lot.
Hmm. I know whenever
Um,
I wear this, I get a
yeah,
few compliments. Like, not just regular, like, oh, nice shirt. Like, people go crazy for it. I love it. Walking down, people are like, oh, look. I don't know if they know that it's the Doge from crypto or just like the internet meme Doge, but
right. Well, it's the same thing, right? So,
yeah.
um, yeah. So you know um, it's cool. We get a lot of feedback of people saying, like, I didn't never see any Bitcoin that actually are about Bitcoin rather than just having a logo on them. So uh, anyway, yeah, it's been really a cool thing. And Ariel's always great to work with. He's a brilliant guy. So it's been we trying to do we've done no advertising now, and it's carrying itself now. So we're in the black, and we've done like no advertising. We did an experimental $50 on Reddit, like I think just banner ads or something, and from there we actually got more orders than we were comfortable with, and we weren't ready to accommodate all this stuff. So we had to like tell people like, hey, we were refunding people.
Oh,
We were
wow.
just here taking back so long. Like, it got stupid. So anyway, yeah, that's been really awesome. Uh, and yeah, the idea of like tokenizing clothing, nobody's really doing that yet either. So we're excited to really bring that to the space too. So
Are you going to do an ICO?
no, not like that. More like, so like the rare Pepe of so close. Like, I don't know, there's only 100 ever made or whatever of different limited edition shirts and stuff like that. So but yeah, some of those ideas are still in the works, but I think it's going to be a neat thing for people. So
So what, when you buy the shirt, you get
yeah.
it?
Um, yeah, exactly. So like on the checkout, they'll be like, what's your counterparty wallet, and then we'll just send people a token for the shirt. So sort of like how there was that DJ Skrilla did that trophy token for people who shared his video. Do you remember the Can't Smoke Bitcoin?
Uh,
And then yeah, it was the concept, but for people, I limited edition shirt or something like that. So like that's sort of a side thing, because we're still just trying to figure out the really complex process of like how to make clothing and then put it in the mail. And that seems tough enough, honestly. Like it sounds so simple, but it's just Murphy's law at every turn has been more challenging
Well, the
than we
clothes are.
expected it would. But the process is rewarding, and I think that it's really vibing with people. So yeah. So I painted. I also I started painting. I don't know if I. So that's really more of where my story has been with crypto.
Piece, Frank
Yes.
White wearing a Bitcoin watch.
Frank White from King of New York.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, basically, I guess that's kind of my thing now. I'm a crypto artist. So I'm a crypto artist who has a crypto artist clothing brand, which is like they were both separate, and I didn't mean for both of them to work, but they both have. And I'm also a developer, so it's like I'm juggling these three things right now, and I don't even know how to introduce myself. I don't know if I'm an artist or a clothing guy or a developer. I don't even know anymore. Honestly, it's just been. It's just there's so much noise in the space. It seems like if you're making something that's signal, people really respond. So like, yeah, it's just been great. I started my first painting I actually made last fall, like in I think it was September, and it just from then people started commissioning
The
me.
one for Adela.
No, actually, it wasn't the one for Adele. It was I painted Scott Weiland from the band Stone Temple Pilots.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and I just painted it for me. Like I just have always loved Scott Weiland, and like when he died, it was like so awful for me because it was one of my favorite musicians. And then yeah, so immediately people just hitting me and like hitting me because I've just I mean I've been in the crypto space for I don't know since what going to like conventions and doing stuff since 2013 2014, but like I've known about Bitcoin since like 2011. So all Bitcoin started having me to Bitcoin paintings, and I'm like, oh, okay, so now I'm a crypto artist, and so it's been really cool. Like it's just I just came out with the Chris and John Seth painting. Have you seen
Yeah,
this one?
it's been all over Twitter. How could you miss
Do you
it?
have it? I don't. Yeah, like it went crazy. Like so it was actually so I took Jimmy Song's blockchain development course like back I don't know beginning of March, and there was this investor there who was like, hey, something that's been a big deal to me is the break of Seth. That was a very emotional thing because Bitcoin Uncensored was like it's like that podcast. Nobody wants to admit they listen to it, but like everybody listens to it. It's like our home, And when they had their falling out, it was like I didn't know where to go anymore. I didn't have a home. You know what I mean? Like for him, it was a big deal, and I think that a lot of people felt that way. It was really emotional. I just felt all alone. So that actually drove him to sort of develop a community, like a local meetup group in his community, and to reach out and meet other people in the culture. And that was sort of when he really went full time as a cryptocurrency investor and everything. So it was like a life altering event for him. So he said, can you capture that? Like, do you think you can paint that for me? And I was like, yes. So I mean, I'll try. So it took like 3 months to figure out exactly how to portray how do you a breakup of two people having a falling out and also the breakup of their show. And it must have been like 6 revisions that I went through just to get it right, like because it has to be subtle. The first revision was like I painted both of them on either side of like this chasm, like this canyon between them, and I was like, that's so lame. It's like it's they just have to go hike and they can be buddies. I don't know. Conceptually, it was really hard to figure out how to display them in such a way that captured all this stuff. But it was crazy once I put it on Twitter literally yesterday, and Josh hit me up like a direct message like, hey, you really captured it, thank you so much. And Chris also liked the piece, so I'm like, I painted the breakup of Chris and John Seth, and they both really loved the painting. I'm like, what? Awesome. This
Do you
is just
think
great.
that might mean they wish they didn't break up and maybe there'll be a reunion
Do,
someday?
do you know what? I will hold my breath for that at all. But I think that I don't know. I think that the breakup was significant for a lot of people, and it's been really resonating with people. So I mean, I just I never dreamed that I'd paint a painting that of both of those people, and they'd both really like it. I thought at least one of them was going to be irritated, or both of them actually. But anyway, yeah, it's been really cool, and to see it kind of just go all over Twitter too has been really cool. So yeah.
Mhm. What's next? Do you have a painting you're working on now that you finished that one?
So I've got got a few actually. So yeah, I'm getting an agent, and she's a gangsta. I don't know if I'm able to say who it is yet, but she's about as OG as anyone in the space is, and so I'm really stoked about that. And then she's someone who's actually very well known in the crypto world, and also is kind of in the art world in New York, and kind of goes to a lot of the culture stuff there. So it's a dream come true if she and I actually figure out a way to work together. I'm really stoked about that. Like I said, if I can sit this up, but yeah, it's been big. Like it just all of that. I'm actually painting a Roger Ver painting right now. I can't really talk about it right now because I think it's going to be a bit controversial when it comes out. Just because anything about Bcash is just you're not allowed to talk about Bcash badly.
No, it's like you're going against the Bible for them.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? It's funny though. I've noticed that seems to be one way because I don't get upset if somebody says anything about Bitcoin or excuse a Bitcoin Core if we have to. But I don't care. Like opinions are opinions, and we really are in this sort of the whole idea of anti-fragility is to be in this culture where we're allowed to say what we want, even if it's vitriolic, even if you don't agree with it. You just say what you think and mean what you say. I think that this sort of Bcash versus Bitcoin to be to rise each other, and I don't see it as being I don't know, it's really interesting. So someone has to paint that in a trolly way, so I will.
I'll look forward to that one. Well, when you
So
say you don't get upset when people talk badly about Bitcoin, I recently did this presentation to a bunch of attorneys, real
yes,
estate attorneys, and I mean, I tried not to show it, but I did get kind of upset when they were talking badly about Bitcoin, and I thought about that. I'm like, this is just their opinion, like it doesn't change anything for me. But it was so frustrating that they don't get it and they don't want to get it. They didn't want to learn about it. It scared them. They had
it was the bar, so the real estate bar.
Yeah. Yeah. The Florida Real Estate Bar
What
Association.
was the? I've been meaning to ask you about that. So what was their deal?
Well, and it wasn't everyone. It was like 5 people out of maybe, I think there were probably close to 100 or maybe around that many people
Mhm.
there. And there were a few very vocal people who were saying that, the Bitcoin blockchain could be hacked and just didn't understand the difference of, holding anything on an exchange. And some of their points were valid. Like there is still a lot to be worked out for real estate and crypto, like using whatever kind of blockchain they're going to use. Some of their questions were valid. Like how can you make sure? So the premise was that all properties would get put on the blockchain so that there's some kind of record of the chain of title would go back and it would be accurate and people could trust it, instead of the way if you look on MLS today or something like that, you get it's fragmented. And then also
Right.
some countries, they don't even have title records. America's title records are still on paper in localized county offices. So the idea of having all that in one database basically would be better. But the thing that these title insurance attorneys were so one of the things that they didn't like about it was that there still is a chance for human error. Who's going to create the data that goes onto the blockchain? They can still mess that up at some, like there's still points of failure with it.
It's funny. It's like I can't remember who originally tweeted this, but it was several weeks ago. Someone said it's almost as though there are prerequisites discussing global government systems. And I thought that was like a perfect way to, if you give talks to sort of a general audience or audiences in just kind of professional meeting type settings, you'll have someone who's watched, Fox News and MSNBC, and they think they know anything. And it's almost embarrassing to try to field their questions because they say the dumbest things. They just don't know what they're talking about. And it's not their fault. It's just the information about actual, like what blockchain's capabilities and the promise of blockchain, what it actually is versus what they're saying is total.
Mm-hmm.
If we already have a system for talk, oh, go ahead.
Right. I was going to say that. And then the other thing is, how do you tokenize a house? And it's the same thing when you said you can tokenize a t-shirt or these paintings. Like a token's a digital thing, and the painting, the house, the t-shirt is physical. So somehow they need to be linked, and right now they're not.
Right. And so this is where there's sort of an element of centralization, and I debate this with some of the people in the Jacksonville group a lot, in the Jacksonville Bitcoin telegrams and stuff. You find Eric especially loves to debate this one, but the shout out to Eric Herrera. He's the organizer of the Jacksonville Bitcoin meetup. There we go. It just had to happen. It already happened. So for kind of record sort of need you need centralization sometimes. If you say here's these tokens for all of these houses, at some point you're going to need some kind of clearinghouse or some kind of centralized or pseudo-centralized authority that says that whitelists, that says these tokens represent actual properties and these other tokens are garbage tokens that have been generated by spam transactions. For example, if you don't have that, and I'm not talking about like a proof of authority, sort of totally different, but I mean you sort of need some kind of a silver when you tokenize your art. How do you tell which token is the real token versus which token is the counterfeit token? There has to be some sort of centralized place or somewhere you can go to see which token is the right one. Actually, we've talked about this, you and I, a lot. I don't, for the sake of people watching now, I don't know if we've even discussed tokenization of art, that word. We should a bit and then come back to this, I think. So you can secure art against counterfeiting or against theft by rolling a 1 out of 1, like a unique crypto token center of the art piece. And by doing that, the token is like a transferable certificate of authenticity. So that crypto token will just follow the painting. So when someone consensually sells it, they'll also give the token to the next buyer, to the next buyer. And there's this sort of chain of title, essentially, that goes all the way back to where the painting was originally made by the artist. So that's blockchain until, let's say, an artist wants to use more than one wallet to issue tokens for their paintings. How do you which I'm going to do, it doesn't make sense to use one wallet, because then you've got sort of a single point of failure, right? If you ever lose the private keys to that wallet, or someone gets that wallet, your career is gone. You see what I mean? So you sort of have to, I think that the most sensible place, so you need to start whitelist to show tokens are authentic and which ones aren't. And to do that, I mean, the most practical place would be your own website as an artist, to say, yeah, here's the valid tokens. And just by doing that, there's a very viewable log of what's the right thing or wrong. But then if someone hacked your site, they could actually put the address of the counterfeit tokens, and until you notice that your site's been hacked, they could try to sell a piece. There's all kinds of, with any kind of security, they're sort of playing back and forth. Sorry, Sasha, I forgot where I was going with this, and I sort of droned off into nothing.
No, it's good. That was another thing that they kept saying in the real estate thing, was they were just worried about hackers, and if a house sale would get done, to the wrong address, there's no way to repeal it, all these kind of things. But what you just said, having two wallets, or, that being the single point of failure of, if you get hacked, it's not something you can control that easily. So I think that's one of the bigger pain points in crypto today.
So I think the idea of using tokens just for a title for a property, I don't know that has a lot of value, to be honest. Because you could just use Bitcoin, for example, to pay for a house. And then you have all of the transaction to say, the data to be like, hey, this transaction, I was paying for this house. You can add notes to the transaction to say, this is, what I mean? You can say, I am buying this property located here, few much it goes into even legally defining a property. You have all the surveyor's offices, you have the address of a property, and its legal description are totally different if you go and look at like court records. It's just, I don't think that you're going to just replace all of that and be like, let's blockchain everything. It's the blockchain everything pitch is so worn out already. I can't wait for it to go away. And it's probably not. So we're just going to have to keep hearing about all these magical use cases, I think, for years and years.
But the art really does have.
One thing I'm excited. Yes, and that's something that I'm hugely excited about, just as an artist and as just someone who likes art in general, is that when you tokenize artwork, just like with anything else, like with Facebook, your relationship status on Facebook becomes more valuable than how the actual relationship is in the real. Like if you mark, it's like, when you're officially broken up, right? Like the digital representation of a thing is more valuable than the real thing. And that's sort of the way that things are going now that we're, current year,
Mm-hmm.
and moving forward, it's going to be more so that way. The token that secures a painting will actually be more valuable than the art piece. Like we'll trade artwork by trading tokens. I mean, I really do envision a future where there will be people who day trade original paintings just by trading the tokens. It would be so cool, and having a higher secondary market value.
Sorry, would
I
they
think
mail
that they probably would have to.
the token? How
I
would
think so.
that
Yeah.
would happen?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm doing. I mean, so when I do my Roger Ver, my Bitcoin Jesus painting, Bitcoin Judas. But anyway, when I send that one out, I'm gonna do a blockchain auction on the decentralized exchange with that token, and whoever ends up being the owner of the token, I'll have them prove that they are the actual holder of the token, and once that, I'll ship them the piece.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny about revenue management and how on earth can we get buyers to actually honor their transaction? And it's like, eBay figured this out. Silk Road figured this out. Reputation management is a problem that's really already solved. It's not like, oh, how can we do this and blockchain is? It's like, well, really, like we have options, you know what I mean? So we would just look to the older models of like eBay and even Silk Road, and how did they manage reputation? How did they make sure that sellers were trustworthy? How did they that were people? The same techniques will apply to anything on blockchain as well. It's not going to be too tricky. But the secondary market, when people are trading art by trading tokens, it's going to lift the secondary market value of artwork, which means that it lifts the initial value of artwork higher. So you'll have artists making more money and a lot more room for people to be professional artists. So that's just amazing. It used to be you art because if you're like sort of like your art walk farmers market kind of level where you get a booth and just try to hustle your paintings at the monthly art walk or whatever in your local city community, whatever. And a lot of places don't have them. I think it's cool here, Jack. They have like a monthly art walk where indie artists can actually even try to make money being an artist. A lot of places don't even have that culture. But anyway, instead of selling something for its aesthetic value only, you're also selling its secondary value now, which means a lot more people will be able to make a living, being an artist, which is just awesome.
Mm-hmm. I know I attended this art auction, like digital art auction, a couple weeks back now in DC. It was the Rare Digital Art Auction. Rare, yeah, that's their name. Just they started that conference rare.af, or rare as fuck, but they had 10 pieces, and I ended up buying one for, I think it was 0.8 ETH, and I can't really do anything with it. Like you have to use this Toshi wallet that they said would be, you could display it on there, but it doesn't display on there. I can't display it on my Facebook or Instagram or anything, but it was still, it has a value because it's got a token on it, even though,
Right.
it's not really, the value isn't the art, it's the token, I guess. But
this is one of those like, should have used Counterparty. Actually, right now, I still think, people say what they say about the colored coins protocol. But I still think colored coins, or specifically Counterparty, is going to be the go-to solution for artwork for the next, at least the next year. And if it becomes something else, it's okay, because Counterparty is on the Bitcoin blockchain, so you're set. Like as long as you're on the Bitcoin blockchain, it's going to be around for a long, long time. So but so Ethereum, I've not actually tried, even attempted to try tokenizing a piece with anything in Ethereum land. That's been.
Well, if you want to, well, you're having good success with your sales, not even necessarily on the blockchain, but if you look at the investors on the Ethereum art blockchains, they're making a ton of money, or like they're spending a lot of money. That crypto kitties, that some of them are going, I saw one at the Ethereal Summit get auctioned off for $140,000. And
nice.
I don't think any rare Pepes. Well, so that Homer Pepe on the Counterparty one went for, I think, 30,000, and I think that's the most expensive Pepe that has been created. Although I think DJ Pepe sitting behind me should be worth more than the kitties anyway.
I want the I hope it does come this like Dash versus when there's like a counterparty art versus Ethereum art sort of fanboy wars thing. I hope we don't get there, you know. But I just have found that counterparty is a really easy way to just roll a token real quick and send it to somebody. And if part of what I'm doing is I'm actually getting a speaking circuit put together to evangelize the idea of tokenizing art because of what it does for the secondary market. You know, it's only any good if everybody who's buying art demands that a token accompany the art piece. That's not demanded out there. And to create that demand, all we have to do is teach people because it's so cool. But we have to float that idea as much and like as far and wide as possible, or else, you know,
How do you think
without that demand, it won't matter.
how do you think we could get there that people buying art will just demand a token with it?
Well, it's the same thing as when you demand a title with a car, because if a car doesn't come with a title, it's stolen, right? Like it's not any good. Just the idea that if I sell you an original, like a signed original, and it comes with a token that sell a lot more money, and it'll probably because we're in this sort of crypto boom, the piece can double in a few weeks even. You know, I have a buyer who. Every person who's ever gotten an original from me, it's worth at least 3 to 5 times what it was worth. By the time that I'm done with it and I give it to them, it's worth substantially more than they paid for it. It's like, okay, this is cool, you know? So it's just, what would you not token that is piece proof, and it's going to extremely inflate the secondary market value of it. You're going to insist that someone tokenize their artwork. So then it's just a matter of teaching people how to do that and how to do it in a way that's easy. So how you know, how do you, I think Counterparty is easy enough. It's just like go to counterwallet.io, just roll a token, or if you're just trying to generate some stuff down, you know, with your life, you know, like hide it. I guess teaching people paper wallet stuff, it's like hide it in a paper wallet and be very, very paranoid for the rest of your life. That's how you that's how you tokenize an art piece. So, yeah.
One other question about the secondary market. I know in Europe and I think in California, they have laws where the artist has to get some kind of retribution from all future sales of the art. Is there any way to do that through the blockchain?
Yeah, I mean, you can use smart contracts and you could work out something like that. I don't know if that's going to become the norm and what people decide to do. And in terms of following the laws with art sales, I don't think that that's always the way, you know, the way that it's supposed to go isn't the way that always goes, you know, especially in the art world. I mean, art is, we haven't even talked about this yet, but art has been historically a great vehicle for money laundering. And the reason why is because it's of indeterminate value. You can't really tell what a painting is worth. It's totally subjective. So it allows an artist to create a $30,000, $50,000 thing, you know, from very relatively affordable raw materials, you know, just paint and canvas and these sorts of things. So that's a natural sort of with moving and just with being able to move value from one place to another. So before we had cryptos to move over large sums of money, you had gold, diamonds, and paintings, basically. Cryptos have sort of helped alleviate a lot of that work from but that you'll still see sort of an interplay between the two. I know we said we we're going to talk about money laundering. I don't know how much you want to go into that on this, or if we were.
Oh, I think I don't know about everyone else, but anything to do with criminal stuff is usually kind of fascinating, like how, you know, those masterminds think things up. And money laundering, certainly with crypto, has been for me in the legal side of things, it's something that I come across every day. Not that I'm coming across people money laundering, but I have to try and help my clients stay within the regulations. So figuring out if they're a money service business or if they have to register as a money transmitter. And then if they do, if I'm helping them with like the compliance side of their work, I have to give them these anti-money laundering trainings and
nice.
report the transactions if they're you know, ones that we have to report. So
right, yeah, the suspicious transactions. So yeah, the know your customer laws and the anti-money laundering software is actually an important thing in all blockchain specifically right now. So instead of talking about money laundering, we might talk about like fungibility as well. Let's start with money laundering. So money laundering initially steps: placement, layering, and integration. Placement is when you initially place the unlaundered money into an account. Layering is where you mix and move the money around from various things and in various ways so that it makes the money look more or less legitimate. And then integration is putting that into account being laundering or be laundered, excuse me. The term actually came from Al Capone. He used actual laundromats as a way of funneling money in to his operation. So the term money laundering actually has a history. That's where it comes from. But people think of the term of like dirty money, clean money, and because of laundering the dirt clean. That's not actually where the term came from. But anyway,
that's interesting. I always thought what you just said. I thought you're laundering, like you're cleaning.
Yeah, you're making it clean. Yeah.
Be good money.
Well, no. Capone had a bunch of laundromats. So launder the money, as in bringing it in through the laundromats, so that it looked good on paper. That's where the term came from. But anyway,
like Walter White in the car wash.
yeah, exactly. Now, money laundering, cooking your books are sort of different. You have money laundering, and then you have tax evasion. The methods that you use for these sorts of things can be very similar, even though they're sort of different. Laundering would be more when you have criminal activity that's totally illegal, that you're trying to make the money from that. You're trying to obscure the source of the funds with. Whereas tax evasion is you're trying to obscure the amount of funds that you have. So the methods are honestly similar in a lot of ways. There's a lot of crossover there. What's about layering sort of steps that you have to go through to launder money? The crypto takes care of the first two, and then the third is just done by your exchange, your Gemini, your Coinbase, whatever. That's where you're integrating it. So when your bank looks at an incoming transaction from Coinbase, for example, they look at that and they only know it's like there's an X amount of money coming in from a pseudo-anonymous source. They don't really have a way to connect yet to the blockchain and to look at all of those transactions. So they're developing software that lets them do that. And this is actually really problematic as far as both our liberty as human beings go, but also in terms of preserving the network integrity of the Bitcoin network. And I'll just talk in terms of Bitcoin. Obviously, this stuff applies to any blockchain type token. But they're developing chain analysis software that looks at each wallet address and tries to flag dirty money and clean money, or each wallet as being a dirty wallet or clean wallet. So they say, okay, this wallet is to criminal activity, and then to this wallet to that wallet. What happens is that if that starts to make its way to the way that banks will accept your incoming from Coinbase, for example, if someone pays you in Bitcoin, you don't know if a dirty bank will actually let you go ahead and deposit that. Do you see what I'm saying? And then all of a sudden, if you can't trust one Bitcoin to be the same as another, that really hurts the integrity of the network.
And it's like, if it's cash,
not necessarily.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. Same thing with cash, actually. That's why they have serial numbers on dollars. They try to say these serial numbers are connected to the money that was given as a kidnapping ransom, for example. And they will just kind of, anyway, yeah, I interrupted you though. What were you saying?
Oh, I was going to say this. I didn't know that they were using the serial numbers. I thought cash is cash is cash. Like if you have it and
it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So idea is that we want Bitcoin to be like an electronic cash, or at least just a digital value routing token, right? So if you make it though that some Bitcoin are flagged as bad, then there's the integrity in the network is gone. The fungibility has been destroyed. And just to explain fungibility.
Sorry, just one quick question. How would they flag it as bad? Is it like, oh, that Bitcoin was used to buy drugs?
Yes. Correct. Yeah. So they look at like wallets that were connected to either Silk Road or transactions on any of the new Tor services that are out there to replace it, or anything that was connected to, like, I don't know, like the Bay, for example. You sort of look at wallet that the government just doesn't like for whatever, somebody bought a plant substance the government finds distasteful, and so that's a bad wallet now. And so all of a sudden, because somebody, bought a plant, government agrees with any coming from this flag. Do you see, if they integrate software like that into the network, it causes very big problems. Fortunately,
they could take it as far as saying any wallet that hasn't been KYC verified can't
correct
go into the bank, which actually the exchange Polo recently did that. They froze everyone's money unless you would upload a selfie and your passport. You couldn't take your money out.
Right. So they wouldn't do wallets that are KYC verified because there's just two wallets. There's so much going on out there. I don't think they'd ever be able to implement something like that. But what they would do, or try to do, and what they're actively trying to do, is figure out who owns which wallet. See, if you're not tumbling every time you move your tokens, then and for people who are to be a non-source of funds, or using cross-chain transactions to obscure where you're routing the value to. But anyway, it ruins the network's integrity. If you can't trust that each Bitcoin's the same as the next, then Bitcoin isn't Bitcoin. You don't know if you're being paid in good Bitcoin or bad Bitcoin, and that becomes a huge problem. This is part of why off-chain scaling becomes a really big deal. Because like with Bcash, where this grand vision, is to have every transaction on chain, what you're providing a perfect record of where everything went, and you really don't want that in terms of where they're going with all of the AML software right now. It's bad, and ironically, they sort of position themselves as the libertarian token, but until they implement more privacy features, they're actually more at risk for being hit hard by all of the AML tools and software that are coming out.
Do you think those privacy features defy systems like the chain analysis, or is it just smoke and mirrors and they can still see what's going on those coins?
So this is sort of, if we're talking about layer 2 stuff, or are you talking about like current tumbling methods?
I was more talking about like Pivx, Monero, Dash. Like, do you think that chain analysis could see them, or?
So yeah, like Dash and it has had these problems where not every transaction required anonymity. And if you can look at a few transactions that are non-anonymous, okay, and let's just say half of the transactions are anonymous and half are not, you can actually fill in the gaps and figure out the rest. So, and the amount of transactions you need to be non-anonymous to figure out everything else is very small, something like 20% or less, actually, when you start to look at everything. Actually, this is where Monero had a few people getting caught for various things because of that. Now they require privacy on every single transaction. That's a much better thing. But before that was a thing, they actually did have people getting caught. So yeah, but with the layer 2 sort of scaling solutions that you'll see on Bitcoin, that's going to keep the majority of the transactions happening chain. You don't have, your chain analysis tools aren't going to be as useful because you're trying to find where the money moved when it didn't even move on chain. So
tell us what off-chain really means, or like break it down.
So there's a lot of ways to do this. Basically, use the so like side chains, and there's drive chains. There's a bunch of stuff that's coming out, but the idea is that data is sort of pegged to the blockchain, and you just have records of balances essentially. So the data that goes to the blockchain is sort of aggregate of here's all these transactions, the final balances, here's what we're doing. So that keeps all the transaction data off of the blockchain so that the blockchain is leaner and just has less bloat. This helps you to scale in terms of keeping the blockchain streamlined and small, but it also helps to scale in terms of the value of data that goes onto each block. So if you grow the block and each block can be, it can chain, I don't know, let's just say an arbitrary amount of data, the value of each block and how much that the miners are going to be making doesn't really scale. You'll have more transactions, but for how much would be willing to pay a transaction fee to buy a cup of coffee? Like maybe 5 cents maximum. So then it becomes a question of how many 5-cent fees can I fit on any given block, which is silly. If you have the alternative of having, here's 10,000 transactions and it only has to peg, I don't know, 3 anchor points to the actual blockchain for that. Well, here's 10,000 cups of coffee at their 5-cent fee that goes into, now I can pay real transaction fees on each of those. So you've actually scaled the incentive that goes into the transactions for each block. That you just more pattern for sustaining the growth of the incentive structure that keeps all the blockchain together.
So how would that work for the miners? Are they going to get less of a transaction fee this way, or they'll still get a lot because there's so many data points in each block now?
So yeah, for the miners, it would work the same way that it works now. We're just saying that all of each transaction might represent a body of many more off-chain transactions. So the amount that people are going to be willing to pay goes up. So remember back in the fall when we had like $40 transaction fees when the network was under attack by by various people, by various parties with varied interests. During that time, so $40 is actually like, wait, let's do this, but if that $40 transaction fee actually is to service a huge bunch of, like 100,000 transactions happened here, and we're just doing a $40 transaction to just tie it to chain, nothing that can really work.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that makes sense. So instead of increasing the size of each block, you're increasing the amount of importance of each block, basically the value of the data that's going to each block. So miners, I mean, they'll still get paid the same way they do now. It's just that the value of being on the block is more as you sort of make each transaction represent more than transaction. It lets you expand steadily.
So what about the security risk of that? Like if every transaction's on the blockchain, we know it's verified and the nodes are verifying it, but how is the off-chain data being protected or verified?
So it's actually verified by blockchain. It's all done in a trustless way, and it depends on which there's a few different ways of solving this, and different softwares and tools that are coming out to do it differently. But in general, you're using the blockchain to sort of an arbitration layer, only going chain to say, hey, I have a dispute, or you see what I'm saying, like, or to resolve discrepancies. So you're using it for a consensus layer. But then just for the transaction data and for everything else that's happening, where all the noise is basically is off chain. So there's different. I can't really say it without going more into it, but just in general, the blockchain is used to arbitrate disputes and to just resolve consensus.
Like what kind of
just for the minimum amount of time and effort that it takes to do that. Sorry, what?
Sorry, I think it cut out for a second, but what kind of dispute would be arbitrated on the blockchain?
So just like balances, for example, for saying that this, if you have different parties that are posting, it, to get more into like how side chains actually work to do this, but basically if you have you're registering on the blockchain basically balances or just summaries of all the transaction data. So if there are different parties that disagree with that, or different nodes that disagree with that, they can see on the blockchain. And then you see what I'm saying, that it sort of becomes a dispute and resolution process that happens on chain, but the bulk of the noise happens off chain.
Okay. And when you say that this will help anonymize the transactions, so something like Chainalysis could only see the blockchain transaction, they wouldn't see everything going on below it or on the other.
Yeah, on your layer 2 or even layer 3 sort of. I actually envision that you might even have like layer 3 type, if it's more efficient to layer 2, why also architecture to use like a layer 3? And you see what I'm saying? Like it's just through this way you get this sort of exponential scaling effect. So
I kind of see it, but so to put it in something that's kind of more that I could visualize, if we think about counterparty, so if that's not using the Bitcoin blockchain, counterparty is another layer on that, and then the rare pepes that are like tokens on the counterparty blockchain, which is on the Bitcoin blockchain, that would be the third layer.
So a counterparty doesn't have its own blockchain, actually. Counterparty just uses op return. So it uses what's called the colored coins protocol. which is where you use op return, which is sort of like attaching some text information to a transaction. So it just uses that to say, hey, these Satoshis that are being moved from here to there actually represent a new token that's been created. And so from then sort of where those few Satoshis are being sent back and forth to represent the counterparty token or the counterparty asset moving around. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
So all the counterparty stuff is just pretty much on main layer one. If there's not any layer 2 element to that so far. The better examples of layer 2 stuff really are yet to be seen. Lightning Network obviously is the one that everyone's talking about right now, which I think will be great for micropayments. I don't know if the incentive to add liquidity to channels is there right now to make it good for e-commerce use. It's something we're trying to incentivize at Trustless Apparel right now. We're going to be doing some like limited edition stuff and discounts and all kinds of cool things inside as people to pour liquidity into Lightning Network channels. But I don't know. Long term, it has yet to be seen if it's going to be good for anything other than micropayments. But for micropayments, it's pretty cool. So
when you say pour liquidity into it, how will that work? Like in terms of I buy my T-shirt on your website for Bitcoin, where does Lightning fit in there?
So yeah, we actually accept Lightning payments, and actually Ariel's publishing right now a tutorial on this. This is coming out, I think, in the next day or so. So this is really cool. If you've never done this, look for us. I think we were starting a blog on Medium or something. He's handling that project. I've been doing other stuff, but so yeah, basically. We've got a tutorial and we're going to be incentivizing people to try Lightning and to learn it. So if you haven't, I don't want to waste time on your show talking about it. If you just go to his thing, it'll show you all of it and teach you, there's basically your 3 different wallets that you can try this with, and the difference between like directly or using multi-hop. Just there's all kinds of stuff to know about it. And so we're really trying to push people to try the Lightning stuff. So if you haven't tried it, that would actually be a really cool way to get started.
Okay, I was gonna buy another shirt, so maybe I'll.
Oh, cool.
That way I'll give.
Yeah, we've got one Lightning Network shirt right now, which actually someone got a tattoo of. Did you see this?
No.
Yeah, somebody. Actually, his name is Mike. He's a great dude. Actually, he liked one of the designs from our stuff so much that he got a tattoo of. It's like. It's really weird that for me, like when I do the paintings and then like it goes all over Twitter and it's like, what? Okay, cool. I just made that. It's still like I haven't even shipped it yet. So I'm like looking at it going, okay, that's all over Twitter now. It's crazy. It's really a trip though to see somebody tattoo themselves with something you designed a month and a half ago. It's like, what? So it's been so cool. But yeah, we're going to be teaching people to use Lightning Network and really incentivizing the growth of the Lightning Network. Because I don't know if it's ever going to be basically points going to commerce stuff until people start adding more money more liquidity to each channel. Right now, there's about $20 in each channel, and the idea is that you basically put $20 in a channel and you just move back and forth the value to each other, and then that can all have. Only about dollars is trying to order $80 or $100 worth of apparel, then you've got a problem there, right? So it's been tricky trying to figure that out, especially with multi-use. This connects to this channel, and you're sort of routing the payment through 3 or 4 stops. You still need enough liquidity to make the whole thing work. So for micropayments, though, it's really cool. I see sort of things like pay to comment, like on a tenth of a penny to post a comment as a way to eliminate spam. So, I would be willing to pay a tenth of a penny to comment on something that I liked, but it keeps all the spammers out, for example. I think that sort of micropayment stuff, you're going to see like tiny paywalls everywhere, which would be really neat, I think. Sort of like Steam it, but on Lightning. So.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Anyway, yeah, so the layer 2 stuff though is super cool. It's going to help. I really think that your off-chain scaling is just where it's at for everything. But one of the things I'm really trying to do is teach people about just tokenization of the art market and how to protect and secure paintings with tokens. So that's sort of my little I'm trying to evangelize that and just speaking out and going and just teaching as many people about that as possible, and trying to fuel and just bring people on board into crypto collectibles, your sort of rare Pepes, your Bitcoin cards, your sort of like the whole culture of art that's happening here. It's just amazing.
It really is. It's I think it's a way for people that maybe wouldn't get into cryptocurrency for trading on Binance or something like that. Like that might not interest them, but it's a different crowd anyway that's into the art side of it. And so just the way that the digital art, some of the designs I've seen people do, it's really incredible. What
Yeah, it's awesome.
Photoshop.
And it's really cool too. I just it's the entire culture here is so it's full of individual, like unique people and individual thinkers. You know, because most of the people who got into Bitcoin early were just kind of, I don't know, true in the dark and stuff, and have a whole culture of people who are doing that. And now it's like what we never thought that what we were doing would become that important. I mean, we thought it would be important, it would be cool, but we didn't think it was going to be like this whole new global paradigm that it's becoming. So it's amazing to see all of this happen. And that's actually part of where the artwork that I'm doing and the paintings I'm doing, and also the trustless apparel stuff is. There's a whole shift that's happening. It's a mission really, and so there need to be good artwork that documents all the history that's being created here, but also like cool clothing that represents the culture. Like when you had skateboarding and surfing culture sort of evolving in California, you had the brands that became the brands for that movement. There's a brand for every movement, so there needed to be one what we're to position as.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
This
Exciting.
is so
Maybe
yeah.
you're.
This is
I wonder if there'll ever be like a crypto museum or something like that, where all of your artwork and other other people who have been documenting it the last couple of years too, where everything will be
Do you know
stored.
what? I've heard whispers of number of people who have the ability to make something like that happen. So yeah, there's going to be a museum for sure. I think there'll be multiple. Really, I mean, when we start looking at, I mean, in 20 years, what do you think? How are you going to do how they used to work? It's like, well, you would pay them a fee and they would take your money and loan it to other people, and it's like, wait, what? I don't know how you're going to explain fractional reserve banking to a post Bitcoin world. It's really amazing what we're in the middle of here.
Unless we don't know where Bitcoin's going to go. I wonder if fractional reserves with Bitcoin, once everything's already mined, it might turn into the same kind of thing.
Okay, I've heard actually some really on that, because there are people looking to figure out how you can do fractional reserve Bitcoin loans, and it's like, wait a minute, this is a deflationary currency with like a limited supply. Your world, you know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. It's really cool though. I think that you'll see a lot of actually of tokens coming out that are anchored to Bitcoin's blockchain, and not through counterparty, but through layer 2 solutions that work sort of like when you have an Ethereum smart contract and you have this whole new token that's based on that. You're going to start to see a lot of that with Bitcoin, but in a way that's really scalable and really clean and doesn't cause bloat on the blockchain. I'm actually working on projects that are soft type available, so like it's just really cool to see what's shaping up. There's some amazing groups in Florida. Do
Um,
what?
I missed what you just said. You said I'm actually working on, and then it just cut out. Can you
Oh,
repeat?
really? Okay, so I don't know if it's an open source project that's really small right now, and I think it's probably a little too new for me to plug. So I don't know if they want a plug right now. But there are software tools that are being developed to make really clean layer 2 sort of solutions, and really clean using layer 2 to create our own tokens now. It'd be really, really neat what shapes up, especially for the next 2 years or so.
Yeah, it feels, I don't know, it feels exciting to be part of it. Like just seeing, how is this thing going to grow and transform things. I
Mhm.
remember when we first met at that conference, Coins in the Kingdom, and they had that wedding on the blockchain. It was like,
Yeah,
whoa, what else can we do with this thing?
yeah, absolutely. Jeffrey Tucker was their officiant. That was amazing. I love Jeffrey Tucker. He's one characters. Anyway, it's just been so awesome, and I think where we're going is huge. There's uh, there's one insight that I heard from someone out of the Bitcoin group in Jacksonville that I thought was so cool. He said that he said if you look at the language that the politicians and regulatory people are using about Bitcoin, uh, it's kind of harsh when it comes from like a senator or congressman. They'll say like, "Oh, rah, rah, these criminals and their drugs and their money laundering." But if you look at the SEC and if you look at the Federal Reserve Bank, the other big government bodies, and these are the people who are the most like directly affected by Bitcoin, their language is actually a lot softer. And if you read what they write, they actually do seem to understand what this is and what threat it could pose to, for example, the U.S. dollar. And they're not really fighting it that much. And this guy said, I wonder if it's their escape plan, right? Like, because when you fiat really hard, like they've done, they just more and more, and you just keep printing, you get your national debt by 6 trillion, and then like 22 trillion. How much can you play that game before the house of cards collapses? What if Bitcoin is their escape plan? And it might not be something that, I'm not saying they created it and it's a scheme. I'm not saying that. I'm saying they're like, wait, this is convenient. Like we can escape the gallows that we're headed for if we just let because if your currency, and I do believe that there's sort of an inevitable collapse of the U.S. dollar on its way. You just can't keep fiat. We've gone as far as we can go with it. You could avoid that entire collapse thing by just having, here's Bitcoin. It just keeps going. It's just so much better than the dollar. Just people start to gradually transition. And then when your collapse happens and the big emergency happens, it's like, oh, but we already have this other thing in place that just is better anyways. People just swiftly migrate over, and then.
Yeah, but you know where the pain point in that is going to be is all these old people on fixed incomes
Yeah.
won't adopt to Bitcoin. They'll die before they'll use Bitcoin, and they're going to be broke. They already went through, the 2008 lost much of their retirement, and then now inflation's eating up their annual income. Rent goes up.
Well, those are the people that right now are screaming about tulips and Chuck E. Cheese tokens, and I don't really care about them much anyways. For one. Two, through them. But two, I think that what we're going to see is you'll see financial service businesses that come up with problems to reach these people who just aren't really there. I mean, half of the wallets you can download on the App Store, for example, don't even give you your private keys. Now, I think that's terrible, personally. But they're like, oh, we use an online-offline hybrid storage system to keep your funds safe. It's like, so you mean you sweep my balance to your paper wallet and then you give them back to me when
I ask?
This is bad. Anyway, it's like, hopefully. But I think you'll see a lot of so just like dollars used to be redeemable for gold, right? So that they used certificates that said that the bank was holding your gold certificate. You might have businesses that issue Bitcoin certificates. It's like just like your check and go or your check, quick, easy check cashing type businesses. You'll see some of those that operate on Bitcoin. So for people who don't want to use Bitcoin, they can have essentially promissory notes that are backed by Bitcoin. You see what I'm saying? Like paper currencies that are backed by Bitcoin.
Yeah, or even banks might start, if we got there, the banks could use debit cards that are using Bitcoin, so the person wouldn't even really know the difference.
Right, exactly. I mean, and to be honest, the bit has never been to find a more weight of coffee. Credit card is about as convenient as it gets. Just the swipe, and I'm gone. Or not swipe anymore. They've actually gone a step backwards and made it a pain in the ass with this chip reader nonsense. It's really irritating. But anyway,
hold my QR code up every single time I have to get that debit card out. I get annoyed. I'm like, why don't they accept it?
Yeah.
But they don't.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I think that it's funny that so many people, and especially people who have heard about Bitcoin from mainstream media, they think that the purpose here was to create a new currency that's more convenient than cash or credit card or something. And it's like, they go, that's stupid. Why do you need that? It's like, that's not what this is about. It's like never been what this is about. So, they will learn whether they want to or not, going to eventually, so it's just exciting.
Think it might have froze. Are you there?
Oh yeah, I'm here. I was just I just was trying to shut myself. Sometimes I just go and I'll just keep going. So,
No,
um,
it's great, Nick. Thank you. And
hey, thank you.
I guess, till next time, where can people find you on Twitter? It's at Nick in Color.
Yeah, it's at Nick and Color on Twitter, and to be full stuff up on YouTube and just sort of teaching people more about tokenizing art and just about blockchain in general. I think there's too many myths and too many people who are being lied to, and a lot of people who are being positioned as leaders in this that don't know what they're talking about. And then the people who are real engineers who know what they're talking about, they don't want to talk. You don't want to say anything that might be wrong. You know what I mean? Like, so to make sure that everything you say will age well. So the people who know what they're doing don't talk very much, and the people who don't know what they're doing talk a lot. And it's just created this whole sphere of misinformation. So I'm trying to, at least get the word out there a little bit about some of the truth of these things. So especially, and again, evangelizing tokenized art. So that's really my mission right now.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and thanks so much for having me. It helps. It helps to do
Oh,
that.
well, thank you. And I will keep enjoying my Frank White poster and watching you on Twitter put out the new ones and
Oh yeah.
buying some
Um,
clothing.
Yeah,
As
I've got Ignite Tampa here in a few days, so hopefully that'll be fun. That'll be going around, and then should have a Roger Ver up pretty soon. And then there's a few commission pieces in the works that I can't really talk about until they're actually a thing. But yeah, it just so again, thank you so much for having me here. It's been great to talk to you for a while, and yeah, we'll be in touch. Hopefully, we can do this again.
Sounds good. Thanks, Nick.
All right,
Bye.
thank you. Bye bye.